Good afternoon. Thank you for joining our workshop this afternoon for the City of Mountain View's Rent Stabilization Division. This workshop is specifically about utility adjustment petitions and is focused toward property owners and landlords of fully covered units. If you are here for this workshop, we welcome you. And this is a recorded workshop. It will be available after the end of my presentation today. We will send it to everyone who is registered, and it will also be available on our website and through YouTube. So this is not your only time to get this information. We will also send an email with the link tomorrow, as well as this PowerPoint. The PowerPoint will be included. I will go ahead and get started on our workshop. I'm going to give us 2 more minutes here. So at about 2:04, 2:05, we'll get started. I just want to make sure that everyone who wants to join has the ability to do so. So again, we're going to get started shortly, and thank you for coming today. And good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. We have a workshop about utility adjustment petitions, and this workshop is specifically focused for property owners and landlords of fully covered units. We're going to get started in just about a minute or so. I want to give a little bit of time for people to catch up and join, and then we will go ahead and jump in. Okay, thank you again for joining us. We have a utility adjustment petition workshop for landlords. This again is specifically focused on property owners and landlords and is about the utility adjustment petition process. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Patricia Black, and I work for the City of Mountain View's Rent Stabilization Division. Also online, you have Anki Van Dersen and Andrea Kennedy. They also work with me over on this team. And again, it's June 18th, 2024. And all of these materials will be sent to you, the recording of this workshop, as well as the PowerPoint tomorrow in an email that will also have a link to a survey. So please go ahead and know that these materials are available. This is not the only time that you're going to be receiving this information. And we will also have additional workshops as we get closer to the release of the petition process. So we're going to get started with just an introduction to changes in utility billing. This is really for people who maybe are joining for the first time. So just know that if you have joined us previously, this is a brief overview of information that you've probably already heard, but it's always good to get more information about it. So under the CSFRA, our Community Stabilization and Fair Rent Act, rent includes utilities for fully covered units and is subject to rent increase limitations. These limitations include only one rent increase can be given per 12 months. They are subject to the yearly rent increase limits, otherwise known as the Annual General Adjustment of Rent, or AGA, and no fluctuating rental costs are allowed within a 12-month period. On December 18th, 2023, the Rental Housing Committee adopted regulations clarifying that utilities are part of rent for units fully covered by the CSFRA. So, in order to incorporate utilities currently charged separately from rent that are not submetered, A one-time utility adjustment petition process has been allowed by the Rental Housing Committee, and it will incorporate those utilities that are currently charged separately from rent into a fixed amount that is included in the tenant's total rent. You can see here, we're going to take what we call the physical space rent, add our separate utilities to that for our total rent amount. Property owners will need to complete and file a petition to qualify for and apply the adjustment. All landlords of fully covered CSFRA units will need to complete and file a one-time utility adjustment petition. You'll need to submit it for verification and allow for tenant responses. This includes property owners who have sub-meters or who have tenants who have their rent already including utilities. There will be a condensed portion of a petition form for you to complete. This way, all of your tenants will be able to respond to the petition. This petition process does not apply to partially covered CSFRA properties or mobile homes. And obviously, it doesn't apply to non-CSFRA properties. So what are the key points of our regulations here? So on back in December, the Rental Housing Committee adopted additional regulations clarifying that rent includes utilities, and it also outlined the utility adjustment petition process in these regulations. This is Chapter 13 of our regulations, and they are available on our website at mountainview.gov/rent stabilization. In May of 2023, the Rental Housing Committee also amended these regulations to provide some clarification for filing and submittal deadlines. So what type of utilities are included in rent? Any utility charges that are paid by the tenant directly to the landlord or through a third-party billing service are utilities that should be included in rent. This could include water, sewer, or garbage. It could also include electricity if that is not being paid directly to the service provider. Utility charges that are paid directly by the tenant to the utility service provider, like PG&E, or are sub-metered, are exempt. And if you as the landlord already include utilities in the fixed amount of rent, this is okay and needs to continue. You will need to file a petition just to allow the tenants to be able to respond, to state that, yes, this is what is happening, or no, this is not what is happening. Pardon me. The key points of the regulations on utilities include for new tenancies, those tenancies that started March 1st, 2024 or after, the new tenant's rent amount must include utilities. The rental agreement must state the total rent amount and specify the types of utilities and housing service fees that are included in rent. For tenancies that existed prior to March 1st, 2024, RUBS and paying directly to the landlord for utilities that are not included in rent or sub-metered may continue for existing tenants until a utility adjustment petition is filed and approved by the city, and you apply the increase in the next increase time period. This process transitions separate utility charges to one fixed amount. And then we also have tenant petitions, and most tenant petitions for current tenancies about utilities are paused during this transition process. There are some exceptions to this, but if a tenant files a petition after March 1st of 2024, and that includes utilities, the utilities portion of that petition is put on hold, and the rest of the petition is decided until the utilities adjustment time period has passed. So here's a little bit more detail on that. For new tenancies starting March 1st, 2024, the total rent must include utilities. RUBS is no longer allowed. This is paying through a third-party billing service. The total rent must include utilities. The rental agreement must state the total rent amount and specify the type of utilities and housing service fees that are included. And the utility charges are paid directly to the tenant by the utility service providers, such as PG&E, are exempt. For existing tenancies, those tenancies that started before March 1st of 2024, utilities can continue to be charged separately from rent for those existing tenancies, and this is for a limited time. RUBS can continue until a utility adjustment petition is filed with and approved by the city, and you have the opportunity to actually apply that rent increase. Utility charges for vacant or newly rented units may not be allocated to existing rental units through RUBS or similar systems. And utility charges, again, that are paid directly by the tenant to the utility service provider or that are submetered are exempt, but you still have to file the condensed version of the petition. And then tenant petitions. If a tenant filed a petition before December 18th, 2023, and has a final decision that incorporated utilities into rent, the petition decision remains valid. If a tenant has already filed a petition that included utility charges, the utilities portion of the petition will be included in the decision during this transition process. And if a tenant has filed a petition after December 18th, 2023, that included utility charges, the utilities portion of the petition will be paused during this transition process. For petitions for utility charges only, these are not allowed until after the applicable deadline for the one-time utility petition has passed, unless the petitioner alleges utilities were part of rent and the landlord is now charging for them separately, or if a new tenancy is being charged utilities separately through RUBS or directly to the landlord. So before I jump into the actual adjustment petition process, I want to check in and see if there's any questions. It looks like I have two here from one property owner, and they're asking about sub-meter services. How do property owners set up sub-meter services? You would want to go directly to the provider. If you're looking to set up something like electric and gas services, I believe you'd want to contact PG&E. And then for sub-metering for the water utility, I would recommend reaching out to the water utility directly and finding out who they recommend. I don't have any property owner specific contractors or anything like that I can recommend. I can only provide information about the law, not about how you can go about modifying your property. All right, are there any other questions? If there are, you can either raise your hand and I will allow you to speak, or you can type your questions into the Q&A. Does anyone have any questions at this time? All right, Kimberly, I see you've raised your hand. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk. And I do want to mention that if your question is something that I'm going to cover in the presentation, I will elect to pause to respond to it because we're going to be covering it. So I'll go ahead and allow you to talk, Kimberly. Go ahead and unmute yourself. You should be able to speak now.
Hi, Patricia.
Hi, Kimberly.
Thank you for having this webinar today. I'm here with my team, and our main question was, once we start submitting the petitions for the utility adjustment, is that going to be considered our September 1st, 2024 period rent increase? Or can we begin raising rents with the new CPI effective 9/1/24 and then submit for a utility adjustment at a later date?
So you would want to consider giving your AGA for this year for the new period starting on September 1st. And then once all of the utility adjustment petition process has completed, then at the next opportunity to increase your rent, so it would be September 2025 in that case, you would give your rent increase with the AGA, and then also at that time add in the utility adjustment. So you have two options. You can either hold off completely on your current AGA increase due in September until the one-time utility adjustment petition process is complete, or you can give your AGA now and then wait 12 months for when you have that final determination.
Okay,
That
so
makes sense.
if we go with the later and we submit our AGA adjustments September 1st and provide those rent increases, can we still charge the RUBS until the petition is?
Yes, and we'll go over that. I'll clarify
Okay.
that as we go through the slides.
Okay. And then are you also going to be covering today where you're getting your utility max rates?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's all I have for now. Appreciate it.
great. No problem, Kimberly. Thank you for the questions. Okay, Hugh, I see you have a hand raised as well. I'm going to allow you to talk, and you can go ahead and unmute yourself now.
So, yes, hi, Patricia. So my mind is totally boggled by this. I'm looking at page 2 that has the which of the 3 scenarios below best describes it. And I'm thinking, and if you're going to go over this in the presentation later, that's fine too. But otherwise, if it's, and number 3, all utilities are sub-metered or included in the rent. So our situation is that the individuals in they are sub-metered. The tenants move in and get their own PG&E bill for gas and electric. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not included in the rent. I don't have to change anything about that, right?
Right. So
Okay.
what happens with your water, garbage, and trash utilities?
That's what I'm here to talk the question about. So if my understanding is correct, and I just want to be sure before I go ahead, that yeah, the owner is paying that himself every month. So is
So
this
that's included in rent.
no?
So
It's
your
not.
tenants,
No, he pays this extra on his own. Nobody pays hot water or water in the
right. So as a tenant,
yes.
I have one bill that I pay you.
No,
And-
they pay directly PG&E. This
Wait,
is how.
hold on 1 second, Hugh. I
Thank you.
have one bill that I pay you, and that one bill is for my rent, and that includes my water. I don't pay separately for water.
Right.
I don't pay separately for sewer, and I don't pay separately for trash.
Right.
So you are in that third category where everything is either sub-metered, like it is for your tenants with their PG&E.
Right.
And also everything else is included in rent. So you're going to only have to fill out the short portion of the petition form. Okay, so I'm going to go over that later. I'm going to go over that exact chart that's in that
That's
letter.
a good, that's helpful. The short form. Very good.
Mhm.
Thanks. All right. To be continued. Thank you. Great. I'm done.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hugh. So there's a participant who asks a question that says this is for a limited time for the tenants to be able to pay through RUBS. And I'm going to go over this when that time period expires. So there are 2 answers to that. And it depends on whether or not you, 1, file a petition, and 2, if you do file a petition, when you can give the rent increase. So it's a little bit nuanced, but I will go over those details. And again, just know that all of this information is going to be provided to you in your petition packet once we have those available. And those should be available in mid-August. Okay, so the actual utility adjustment petition process, what does this look like? I wanted to go over our implementation plan with you. We get a lot of questions about what we've done, what's going on, what will happen. So we've created this visual implementation plan to kind of help walk you through that. This was also in that letter that we just sent out. You can see we're done with phase 1 and 2, and we're currently in phase 3. So the first phase was perform research and receive input. We did this. This is done. Thank you for everyone who participated and helped to inform this process. We then went on to phase 2. We adopted regulations. The RHC adopted regulations in December, like we talked about. And then now we're in phase 3, the implementation of the petition process. So this is a lot of staff work here and helping provide information out to you. We developed an implementation plan. We then tested the petition process. We brought regulation amendments to the RHC to help implement the petition process more efficiently and effectively. And right now we are in the final portion of phase 3, which is finalizing the petition process, including the forms and instructions, workbooks, and everything else that will need to be released and made for this process to occur without hiccups and as smoothly as possible. We're also in phase 4, which we've been doing a lot of and will continue to do a lot of, which is performing outreach and education. Phase 4 will continue through phases 5 and 6 as needed, which obviously it's going to be needed a lot. We will have consistent workshops and support for you throughout the time period, especially in September, when everything is released, and October, and then as we get close to submittal deadlines. So you can see here, we developed an outreach plan in December. We then started the actual sending, mailing, making sure we had workshops going on. All of that kind of information started happening in January, and we're just continuing through this process. So this month you received a letter that actually had this implementation plan in it. And we have a workshop. We'll have workshops in July and in August as well. And then phase 5 and 6 are coming up. So starting in August, we will release the petition forms. And then we start having those submittal deadlines. So starting September 1st, all properties of all sizes can begin to submit petitions to the city for review. And then you'll see those rolling deadlines based on the number of units on the property. So if you have a property with more than 20 units, your submittal deadline will be February 28th, 2025. If you have a property with between 6 and 20 units, your submittal deadline will be May 31st, 2025. And if you have a property with 1 to 5 units, your submittal deadline will be August 31st, 2025. So that's what the schedule looks like. And then we have our actual staff process starting obviously on September 1st, 2024. And we're just going to continue rolling and processing these petitions as quickly and efficiently as possible. So like I said before, all landlords of fully covered CSFRA units need to complete and file a one-time petition with us. Depending on the current scenario for billing utilities to existing tenants, different portions of the petition may be required. Again, this petition process does not apply to partially covered CSFRA properties or mobile homes, and obviously to non-covered properties. It does not apply. So in your letter you received last week, there were 3 types of scenarios for how tenancies that were in existence before March 1st were billed for utilities. And you kind of just need to see which one you fall under. The first one is really easy to figure out. All utilities are charged separately from rent. They are not submetered. They are billed using RUBS or similar system or paid directly to the landlord, but they are not part of rent. In that case, the full petition process is required, and it will explicitly state this on the form. Scenario 2, some utilities are charged separately from rent. They are not submetered or included in rent. Some utilities, but not all, are billed using RUBS or a similar system or paid directly to a landlord, and other utilities are like PG&E are submetered. The tenant pays for their actual usage of submetered utilities, or other utilities are included in rent. So there's a combo here. The full petition process is still required because you have the RUBS situation that is being used. So we want to incorporate that RUBS or similar system or utilities that are being paid directly to the landlord into rent. So that's why the full petition process would be required there. And then lastly, we have the situation that Hugh was just describing where all utilities are submetered or included in rent. So you have kind of 3 scenarios. All utilities are submetered. Okay, great. Or all utilities are included in rent. Tenants do not pay separately for utilities. Or some utilities are submetered and remaining utilities are included in rent. And that's what Hugh had. So Hugh has a situation where Some utilities are submetered, PG&E is submetered, and the remaining utilities are included in rent. So at no point is there like a rub situation or the tenants paying the landlord for the utilities. And that would, this final group over here would be able to do the condensed petition process. So that's a really short process and, or shortened process. And it provides an opportunity for the tenants to respond. So that's the important key piece of that. We have to make sure that tenants have the ability to respond to the petitions. Okay, what do we have here? When will they be available? They'll all, for all size units, it's all the same form, and it will be available September 1st. Probably we're shooting for mid-August, but the process for submittal will begin September 1st, okay? And we have these deadlines in place that I just went over. So again, if you have a property with more than 20 units, the petition submittals are due February 28th. If you have a property with 6 to 20 units, they're due May 31st. And if you have a property with 1 to 5 units, they're due August 31st of 2025. So 6 months to file, 9 months to file, 12 months to file. And this is what the process looks like. The property owner will submit a property-wide petition form and workbook. City staff will review the petition for completeness. If it's complete, we will send to the property owner a notice of completeness, and the property owner will then serve the petition on the tenants. If it's incomplete, the staff will send a notice of incompleteness, and you, the property owner, will be able to then fix your petition and make sure that it is complete. You'll have 15 days to do that from the time we send you the notice. You're going to send it back to us. We let you know it looks good, and then you can serve it on your tenants. Once that happens, you're going to send it back to us, and you're going to say, hey, I just served this on my tenants, and we will consider that your notice of formal filing. We will then send out a notice of formal filing to the tenants and to you. And then the tenants have 30 days to respond to the petition. So you've given them a copy of the petition, and then they're going to get a notice from us saying, hey, your property owner just notified us that they filed this petition, that they served it on you, and you now, tenant, have 30 days to respond to dispute the calculations or to say, oh, actually, I pay separately for whatever it is, or I pay rubs, and my landlord is saying that it's already included in rent. So it gives them an opportunity to respond. And then staff has the next determination of saying whether or not this increase is approved, or if there's an error in calculation. So we're going to review the petition and the calculations, and then send another letter out. If approved, that will state what the increase is and how you need to apply that with your next annually allowed rent increase. So this is a process, and it will take time. Obviously, it's going to take time on our end. It's going to take time on your end, but we are here every step of the way to assist in the process. So here's some of those details people were wondering about. Utility charges becoming part of rent. If the petition calculations are confirmed, landlords can add in the utility adjustment amount determined in the petition with the next annually allowed rent increase. So the calculation of the allowed rent increase would be 1, to first determine the annual general adjustment percentage on existing rent, and then add the utility adjustment amount to the new rent. And I want to note here that no tenant hardship petitions are allowed for the utility adjustment portion of the rent increase. But if you wanted to give a banked rent increase, the tenant could still file a hardship petition against the banked rent increase in the increase that you're providing at that time. So we will have specific forms with specific language for you to be able to more easily do this, like we already do for the AGA and the banked increases. We're going to have something very similar. That way you already have a template, and you know you have everything kind of covered. You will have to file that with us through the portal, like you do already for banked increases. If a petition is not filed or not filed on time, if you don't submit your petition for review to us within those timeframes, the 6-month, the 9-month, and the 12-month, you as the property owner forego the one-time ability to add the utilities into rent, and you can no longer separately charge for utilities. So whatever the tenant's total rent amount is now includes utilities. It's assumed to include those utility charges. And tenants can then file unlawful petitions with the city to recover any overpayments that they incurred due to RUBS charges. Okay, so this is really important. You really want to make sure you get your petition in those applicable deadlines. And so before I move on to kind of how you can think about calculating the increases, I'm going to go ahead and see if there's any questions. So let's see. At our complex, if a tenant gets insurance through our portal system, it bills their account. We also have storage and we have storage fees. How does this factor into RUBS and how we bill these charges? So those are not part of the utility charges, and there are some nuances here for each different type of billing system that property owners have. And for whoever this anonymous attendee is, it would be really beneficial if you joined our Landlord Help Center on Thursday so that I can make sure I'm providing you with as accurate information as possible for your unique situation. You can join our Housing Help Center by going to mountainview.gov/housing help clinics with an S on the end on Thursday between 1 and 3 anytime between those hours, and we'll be there. You can also just stop by our office between 1 and 3 and we can help you live and in person. If that doesn't work for you, we have virtual office hours every Tuesday. I know we just had them from 10 to 12 at Mountain View. And you can virtually join that by going to mountainview.gov/RSP office hours. This is also in the last slide of this presentation, and I can help answer your specific question. What day will the city have the petition available? So we're shooting for the middle of August, but we'll definitely have it for September 1st. Is the petition process required for all qualified properties no matter what? Or can you choose not to give the one-time increase and not fill out a petition? So you can elect to do that. However, that does come so you can elect to give whatever amount of increase or not give an increase related to utilities for this process. Okay, so that's up to you, but we do recommend, no matter what, completing the petition form. That way you don't end up in the situation where tenants are now able to file petitions against you to get paid back anything that they overpaid in RUBS during the initial time period that RUBS was occurring. So you can definitely choose not to, but there are potentially consequences to not. Can you continue to bill RUBS until the next annually allowed rent increase? When must RUBS stop? So that's correct. So what you're going to do here is you'll continue to bill for RUBS through RUBS until you give the rent increase that incorporates the utility adjustment. Okay, so it could be a little while until that increase is incorporated based on when you do your increase. Like I was explaining to I think it was Elizabeth or Kimberly, that they can go ahead and they can give the AGA in September. That September increase wouldn't include the utility adjustment because the utility adjustment process is just starting, right? So then they would have to wait until the next September of 2025, to give the AGA and the utility adjustment. Or they could wait and not give the AGA in September of 2024 and wait to give the increases until the utility adjustment has been determined, and then they would give the increase in 2024 or 2025 that has the AGA and the utility adjustment. So there's kind of two options and you can decide which one you want to do. Will you be publishing a list of housing services that will be required to be included in rent and those that are not? So this is just for utilities. So this process that we're talking about today is for utilities. The regulations and the CSFRA itself also state what housing services must be included in rent. So please go back and refer to the definitions portion of the CSFRA regulations in chapter 2 and the CSFRA itself. And I can, in the email that we send out tomorrow, make sure that those are included for you. So those are already in existence there. Okay. The last day to charge RUBS to existing tenants. So someone asks, when is the last day to charge RUBS to existing tenants? Is it as of 9/1? No, it is not. Again, you can continue to charge RUBS until the utility adjustment is added to rent. So it's going to be a little while. You can continue to charge RUBS to existing tenants until the utility adjustment is added to rent. What happens if tenants do not respond to the petition? If tenants do not respond to the petition, that's totally okay. The petition process will just continue and we will figure out what the increase is, and all of the noticing, everything will still occur. It's just that the tenants did not participate. So they do not have to participate, but they can, and they need to be provided the opportunity to do so. Will we receive petition filing or will it be on the website? So we will send out a packet. We will send out a packet that includes the petition forms. However, it probably will be easier just for you to fill them out and then send them to us. The whole process will be available online, and the workbook, most important, will be pardon me one moment. My apologies, technical difficulties on my side. So it will be available on the website. There will be forms and workbooks that are computer-based and fillable. The workbooks themselves are probably pretty important to fill out on the computer. They will have the actual calculations in them so that you as the property owner won't have to do them. They will auto calculate, they will be auto formulated so that you don't have to worry about that. And if you are a property owner or a property manager that needs assistance, you can come to our office and we will help you with this. So someone asks, so we lose a full year of utility on rent increases until they get processed. So again, you have options here. You can provide the AGA, you know, when it's available, and then pause and wait where you're still charging RUBS until the utility adjustment process is done, and then give your increase. So when at the next 12-month period. If we petition for September 24 and can't collect until September 2025, nope, that's not what I'm saying. Again, you can elect to choose when you give your AGA. It's just that it has to be 12 months from whenever you give your last rent increase to when you give your next rent increase. You can continue to bill through RUBS until the utility adjustment is added into rent. Within the same community, we have some tenants who pay RUBS and some tenants who are grandfathered in and have utilities included in rent. Can we file both petition types for the same property? There will be a blended petition, and we can go over that when we have more details on what that looks like. To be clear, only one rent increase annually still, whether simply AGA or AGA in this new utility. Yes, that's correct. And Hugh, again, the utility adjustment does not apply to you. You still have to complete the shortened condensed form, but you don't have a situation where the utility adjustment applies to you. If a tenant moved in on November 1st, 2023, and we plan to give them the AGA on November 1st, 2024, the next AGA can only be applied on, nope. So again, you can give them the AGA for this year on November 1st of 2024. Then you would just wait until November 1st of 2025 to incorporate the utility adjustment into rent. So you would continue to have them on RUBS until November 1st of 2025. Okay.
To say, unless they file the petition, right, on September 1, and the petition process is completed before November 1, 2024. And then you can include that in your next AGA.
Correct. Although that feels very
So,
optimistic to me.
yeah.
So
For sure.
yeah. Okay. Can I continue with my AGA increases and wait 5 years before adding the utility adjustment? No, you cannot. It has to be given at the next allowed rent increase. So someone is saying here, it still seems like you lose a rent increase in 2025. No, you have the ability to increase the rent. Again, so if you file your petition, if you have the ability to increase your rent, we're going to go with September 1st. On September 1st of 2024, you can use that AGA. You give the AGA. Then in 2025, you give the next AGA with your utility adjustment. So there's no rent increase being missed here. It's just a matter of whether or not you want to wait to incorporate the utility adjustment into whatever AGA you're currently giving, or if you want to give the AGA and then wait the 12-month period for your next increase. It's just however you choose to do it, but there's no missing an increase here. Okay, I'm just clicking through these, making sure that I've recorded that I answered them. Alrighty. And I see we have one person with their hand raised. With their hand raised, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to unmute yourself. Chris, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, there you go. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. Yeah, just two things. I just wanted to go back to that fact that and get a clarification on the so it's retroactive RUBS. If you don't fill it out, then the tenant can come back and basically sue you for all the monies that you've paid, and you'll have to reimburse them for everything since they've been paying RUBS.
No. So what would happen is that the tenants could potentially file a petition with the city for any overpayments in rent that were caused because of RUBS. So what happens is there's a calculation that figures out what the tenant's rent should have been. It's based on an average of 12 months time period of the first initial 12 months of the tenancy. That includes a calculation on the average of the accumulated utilities payments. That average of 12 months is added to whatever the initial rental rate of the tenancy was, and then any payments over that amount, the tenant could file a petition with the city to receive the overpayments back to them, to be reimbursed for their overpayments. So right now, that portion of consequence is being suspended to allow for the one-time utility adjustment process to occur. But if you don't do it on time, you lose out on that.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. And then the other question was, okay, so I have one tenant that is on RUBS and has been for over a year. And we were holding off on his increase for a bit because we were working on some capital improvements and wondering how we were going to deal with that. But and then all this stuff came around. And so at this point, we have not given him his increase that was due in September. It was actually due to him in like November or December. We haven't given that one yet. And he's also on a month-to-month that we haven't renewed. We were going to renew, but we were waiting for all this stuff to come around. So he's on a month-to-month. And so we can continue charging him RUBS until we go through the petition phase on this. That correct?
That's correct.
No matter if it's not, if his lease has ended and he's on a month-to-month, that doesn't matter.
That doesn't matter. I want to mention that for month-to-month leases and tenancies, it's month-to-month for the tenant after the first 12 months of tenancy or after the initial term of tenancy expires, not month-to-month for the property owner. So the tenant can finish and complete a tenancy after giving you a 30-day notice, but you cannot evict someone for not having a lease or for being on a month-to-month lease. That's not one of the 9 reasons for evictions in the city of Mountain View. So I just want to mention that. Essentially what happens is the lease terms from the original lease stand until the tenant decides that they want to terminate the tenancy.
Okay, correct.
Yeah. So you can increase the rent. That's allowed as long as you do it lawfully and you're allowed to, increase the rent because you've done all the things that you need to do, like register your property, pay your rental housing fees, make sure there's no code violations, all of that kind of stuff. But as long as you're in compliance with the law, you can increase the rent every 12 months after the initial term of tenancy.
Right. I was just wondering if the month-to-month made a difference on when we had to stop charging him RUBS, but it sounds like we can do it. So say though, we don't do the petition till we have till May and he continues on this one. But we can still give him his increase and keep him on the RUBS until we do the petition, as long as it's just yay.
That's right. And so what happens is you'll do the petition, you give him your rent, the rent increase whenever, because you waited, right? So you're already past the 12-month time period. So you can give an increase whenever. Then you're going to go through the petition process. We're going to figure out what the utility adjustment is. And then the next time that you were able to give a rent increase, you'll give the rent increase for the AGA and you'll add in the utilities adjustment. Okay, so you'll just keep the tenant on RUBS. You can increase the rent now, you give that AGA, and then, so let's say you want to increase the rent, you give your 30-day notice. We're going to come in for August 1st. You give your August 1st rent increase for your AGA for this past time period. Okay, great. You're hanging out. You got your AGA in. And now you're going to wait 12 months. We're going to go through the petition process. We're going to figure out what the utility adjustment is. And then August 1st of 2025, you're going to give your next 12-month increase. And it's going to include your one-time utility adjustment amount plus the 2025 AGA.
Okay, sounds good. I think that is about it. Thank you very much.
Not a problem at all. I'm going to go ahead and remove your ability to talk for now, but if you have another question, just raise your hand and I'll add it back in, okay? All righty. So I have one more question here. Is there a timeline or time frame this will be approved if everything goes smoothly? We're going to have more of an answer, an idea of how long this will take us as we kind of go through the process. I'm hoping to get these done as quickly as possible. I'm going to guess, at least based on experience with other petitions, by the time we finally receive a complete petition form from A property owner, I would say probably 2 to 3 months, but I'm not gonna, don't quote me on that. Okay. Ooh, good questions, everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. This is a very high level overview of calculating how the utility adjustments will be determined. Again, this will be in the workbook. We will have an Excel workbook that does all of this calculation for you, so you don't have to worry about it. And again, if you need help with the computer side of stuff, yeah, you can contact us and we will assist. Okay. So forms and workbooks, they will be available. We're shooting again for mid-August to landlords, as well as an Excel workbook that will automate the bulk of the calculations. And we are here to help, so you can contact us. You cannot get the forms yet at mountainview.gov/rent stabilization. If you go there right now, you will not find the forms for the utility petition process, but they will be there. And again, we're shooting for mid-August. So what are the steps for determining the calculation? The first is to figure out the amount of utility charges for the entire rental property for the period between July 1st of 2023 and June 30th of 2024. And this only is applicable to those properties that have RUBS or utilities are paid directly to the landlord and not included in rent. The next is to figure out the common area deduction percentage. There's a calculation for this. It will be in the workbook. And then you're going to deduct that amount from the 12-month property utility charges amount that you've figured out in step 1. Then we will figure out what the average monthly utility charges minus the common area deduction for the property is by dividing the total monthly bill minus the common area deduction by 12. Because that's our 12-month period. We'll then determine the number of rooms in the entire property, counting kitchen, living room, and bedroom. And then divide the average monthly utility charges as calculated in step 3 by the total amount of rooms on the property to get the charge per room. Okay, now this is important because this is how we figure it out for the actual units. To calculate the allowable monthly utility charge per unit, you figure that out by determining how many rooms are in the rental unit and multiply that by the utility charge per room. I know this sounds complicated, but the workbook's going to do this work for you. So you're just going to put in some numbers and the workbook's going to spit it out. And then the next piece of this is to determine the amount of the utility allowance per rental unit as published by the Santa Clara County Housing Authority in 2023. So there's a schedule here. We're going to look at 2 things to figure out which amount you can claim per unit. So you're going to do the first calculation. That was steps 1 through 5, and then you're going to look at step 6 and figure this out. We're going to figure this all out for you. We're going to have help and assistance all the way around step 6. And then you're going to compare the numbers in step 5 and the numbers in step 6. Whichever one is less, whichever one is lower is what you can claim per that unit. Okay, so and then you're going to take that amount and multiply it by the consumer price index that is released in June of 2024. And well, actually it's released in July of 2024, but it's for June of 2024. The workbook's going to do all of this work for you. You don't have to memorize this. There will be algorithms and formulas that take care of all of this stuff, but I wanted to go over it at a very high level so that you know kind of how the process works. Okay. Are there any questions in this portion of the presentation? Looks like I have one. Will the rent board always have to approve the petitions prior to giving the rent increase? Just wondering. So this rent increase is very specific for most rent increases. The AGA, the annual general adjustment of rent, property owners just give that rent increase once every 12 months. If the tenant disputes it, they can file a petition with the city. In this situation, there's a unique opportunity that is being provided to property owners to incorporate utilities into rent. And that is what's happening right now. So this is a unique situation, and in most cases, property owners can just give an increase, and tenants can respond if they don't believe that increase was given correctly under the law. For banked rent increases, property owners have to file the banked rent increases with the city, but they're not approved by the city. Does the calculation include how many people live in the unit? No, it does not include how many people live in the unit. The calculation is based on the number of rooms in the unit, not bedrooms, but rooms. So kitchen, living room, bedroom. The bathrooms and dining areas are not included. And I have, yes, common areas there's a common area deduction. As I mentioned here, so there's a common area deduction, it's typically about 15%, and that has to be subtracted from the amount that's allocated to the units. If the RUBS calculation that we are currently using comes out to different from what you allow per this step 8 process, can the tenants go back and file a petition for past RUBS utility amount charged to them? I'm not 100% sure I understand the question, so I'm going to take a just general guess here. So if you file this petition and you apply the one-time utility adjustment amount as determined in this petition process, tenants are not allowed to file additional petitions against utility charges unless something egregious is happening, like the property owner says that utilities are being included in rent, but they're not for new tenancies, or there was another scenario that I said at the beginning of the workshop here. If you go through the petition process and utilities are included in rent now, that is the amount that utilities are. But tenants can also respond to the petition and dispute what's in the petition. Okay, and I have one more person here who has a question. I'm going to go ahead and allow them to talk. Kimberly, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, Patricia, one more question. Because RUBS are usually charged on a per person household basis in order to ensure fairness with the utility portions and payments, or utility charges and payments, I should say, this may result, this petition process, in a substantial rent decrease overall. Are landlords going to have any right to petition the city for a review of that, or is it just upon approval, we get what we get?
So property owners always have the ability to file a fair rate of return petition with the city if they're not able to maintain their net operating income. And that would be the recourse that you would have in this situation.
Okay. So it'd be case by case.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go on. Preparing for the next thing, just a very high level overview of what you need to do to prepare for the petition process. You can start doing this now. So you're going to want to gather your utility bills that are paid through by RUBS for property-wide from July 1st of 2023 to June 30th of 2024. So go ahead and figure that out. You're going to want to document your common area facilities, including if you have a pool, landscaping, laundry facilities, pictures or floor plans are accepted. You're going to want to start gathering individual unit information, such as the tenant name and contact information, the date they moved in, rent increase information, and floor plans, the number of bedrooms, the presence of a kitchen and a living room. So we just need to have the basic information to make sure that calculation is correct. And then the last piece of this that you can start gathering is proof of utilities. So if you have utilities that are included in rent or sub-metered, you're going to want to provide proof of that. So that includes like pictures of sub-meters, individual bills for the utilities, rental agreements that show that utilities are part of rent or sub-metered. All of those things are fine and appropriate. So you can start the petition process without having the forms. You don't need them to start gathering the documents. So you can get a step ahead, get your foot in the door by starting to gather this information. And then for the consolidated, the condensed petition, so this is that scenario 3 where either all of the tenants, all of the units, all of the utilities are sub-metered, or all of the utilities are paid in the total rent amount, or utilities are sub-metered and the rest are included in the total rent amount. For that condensed petition process, and my apologies, we had a slight technical difficulty. And on my end, city staff, can you please contact the people who have the next meeting and let them know that we'll be continuing our workshop
Okay.
and joining shortly. Thank you. Okay, so the condensed petition process, you'll only need this information for those units that either have your utilities already included in rent or are sub-metered or a blend of the both. Okay, so that is the end of our high-level overview of the petition process, and I apologize for the technical difficulty there. We will make sure to get everything out, so both links to this webinar and the PowerPoint to everyone. Are there any questions before I go on for sharing contact information? All righty, so you can always reach out to us. There are different avenues to do so. The first is joining our Housing Help Center for landlords and property owners. Again, this is the first and third Thursday of the month from 1 to 3 p.m. And this is a help center specifically for landlords and property owners. We will start to host these every week in September, starting in September, to really provide as much assistance as possible. You can also walk into our office if you need help from 1 to 3 p.m. On the first and third Thursday of the month. And you can see over here, our address is at 298 Escuela. We're right next to the senior center, and we either have parking on site in our driveway. We're in a little house, or you can park at the senior center and walk on over. You can also park on the street, but street parking is kind of rare and hard to find. And then this is our general contact information. You can email us by going to mvrent@mountainview.gov or giving us a phone call at 650-903-6136. And you can learn more about rent stabilization in Mountain View by visiting mountainview.gov/rent stabilization. On that website, if you click on information for landlords, you'll see a dashboard, and you can click on utility charges and RUBS. That'll bring you up to date information on this process, including our implementation plan. And in the future, you'll be able to go there to find the forms. All right, I see I have a few more questions here. Is the common area deduction to be determined by you all? So in the regulations, it has specific information about what can be included, and you're going to want to go ahead and refer to that. It will also specifically state the different options that are available and how that calculation occurs. I had asked before if there's a 1-bedroom with 1 person and a 3-bedroom with 5 people, the charge for utilities could be the same for both of the units because the bedrooms aren't considered. Bedrooms are considered in the calculation. So it's the number of bedrooms plus other living areas like the kitchen and the living room. The bathrooms are not included in the calculation. Is there going to be another webinar when forms come out? Of course there will be. We will have webinars coming up in August and probably in September and October. We will start to update our outreach plan as we start to receive petitions and see what people are needing. Is the common area deduction going to be in a framework? Yes, it is in a framework that are in the regulations, and it spells it out specifically what that framework is. And then the workbooks will also provide that information. So you'll be able to see what you have on your site, and it'll help you calculate that information. All right. Okay, so if you have any questions for us, you can always reach out at mvrent@mountainview.gov or give us a call like you see here. We also have office hours every Tuesday. They're virtual from 10 to 12. And you can utilize them by going to mountainview.gov/RSP office hours. We will continue to provide updates and information as this process rolls out. And you'll probably get more information in the mail from us too. So keep an eye out for some postcards, keep an eye out for another letter. We will do our best to make sure that you all are as informed as possible. Thank you so much for joining us this Tuesday afternoon. I appreciate all of your questions and participation, and we look forward to providing you more information and assistance in the future. Again, my name is Patricia Black, and as always, we're here to help. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good afternoon.